What if I told you that ancient Iranians do not have their roots in the Central Asian Steppe, that the ancestors of Medians, the Achaemenids, and Parthians, the great empires of Iran, were not descended from the famous Sintashta or Andronovo cultures, that the steppe connection that's been repeated so often in modern discourse might actually be overstated or even wrong? This might sound controversial, but a newly published study this year presents the most comprehensive genetic analysis of ancient Iranian populations to date, and it changes pretty much everything. For the first time, we now have a full spectrum genetic record of Iranian populations from the Mesolithic era all the way through to the classical period. And these aren't just random bones. These are remains of people who called themselves Arya and spoke Iranic languages. Their DNA tells a story that's far deeper, more complex, and more Iranian than ever imagined. Let us now start with the dominant narrative. For years, it's been widely assumed, even taken for granted, that the Indo-Iranian peoples originated in the Central Asian steppe, especially from cultures like Sintashta and Andronovo. Why? Well, that is because of their association with the R1a haplogroup, especially the R1a Z93 subclade. The early use of chariots and horse culture is also one of the reasons, and I have a video on that, by the way. So make sure you watch that video as well. And there are also linguistic models that connect Indo-Iranian languages with steppe migration. I will discuss this in a future video, but for now let's stick with the topic of our video. This steppe model argues that Iranic people came into Iran through mass migrations, replacing or assimilating the local populations. But until recently, there was a lack of genetic data from ancient Iran to truly test that theory. And that's where this new paper comes in. The study includes 50 ancient samples from 9 archaeological sites across Iran, spanning from 4700 BCE to 1300 CE. The focus is primarily on northern Iran, especially during the Achaemenid, Parthian, and Sasanian periods. These newly analyzed genomes are integrated with a broad reference dataset from Western and South Central Asia. The samples were genetically tested for both Y-DNA haplogroups and mtDNA. We also have genome-wide ancestry analysis. We use admixture modeling, admixture graphs, principal component analysis, and stuff like that. These are the Y-DNA haplogroups of those samples. If you observe, there are many Iron Age samples carrying R1a haplogroup. So this may seem like it proves steppe migration from Central Asia, but that's not true. These R1 samples from Iron Age are from northwest Iran, and all of them are R1b samples, not R1a. Can R1b bring Indo-Iranian languages into Iran? Well, no, it cannot. The R1b in Iran entered from this route, through the Caucasus region right here. This was caused by the 4.2K event. What is the 4.2K event, and what does it have to do with the R1b migration? I will try explaining it in a simple way for you to understand. The 4.2K event was a big climate change that happened around 2200 BCE. It caused serious drought and cooling in many places, including the steppe. The land became dry and cold, which made it hard for steppe people to live there and feed their animals. Because of this, many steppe people moved south. Between 2200 and 1700 BCE, they mixed with southern Indo-Iranian groups and were slowly absorbed into those populations. And that's why we see Y-DNA from the steppe, like R1b, appearing in the Caucasus, northwest Iran, Iraq, and the Levant after the 4.2K event. We also see R1a in Central Asia, South Asia, and northeastern Iran at similar levels as in northwest Iran and the Levant. And although the steppe people mixed with others, they did not change the languages in places like northwest Iran, Iraq, or the Levant. So it is also unlikely that their arrival changed the languages in Central Asia, South Asia, or Iran. The popular steppe theory suggests that Indo-Iranians came from the Central Asian steppes and not through the Caucasus route. So this was it. R1b is not related to Indo-Iranians, but it entered from the Caucasus because of climate change. Similarly, R1a also entered into the subcontinent because of climate change. So, contrary to what many expected, R1a lineages, especially the ones linked to Sintashta or Andronovo, were absent from Iron Age and historic Iranian samples. Instead, the most common Y-DNA haplogroups in ancient Iran were J1 and J2. These haplogroups have deep roots in the Iranian Plateau, the Caucasus, and West Asia. J1 and J2 are not linked to Central Asian steppes. On PCA, we observe that the historic Iranic-speaking populations like the Parthians, the Achaemenids, etc. are closer to the Bactria-Margiana archaeological complex. The Achaemenid samples here literally cluster with the BMAC samples. This means they are quite similar to each other by ancestry, and BMAC is very likely the source for their Iranic languages. If you haven't watched this video, you should watch it next. Let us now move to the genome-wide analysis of the samples that matter to us in this video. One of the key tools here is admixture. This is a tool that helps us know the ancestral components and their percentages in ancient populations. The paper authors did not model these populations with steppe MLBA groups from Central Asia. The study found that the steppe-like signal in the tested ancient Iranian samples is only due to the shared CHG ancestry that was already present in both steppe and Iranian populations. For those who do not know what is CHG, CHG is Caucasus hunter-gatherer. This means there was no large migration of steppe groups into Iran, countering the argument that Indo-Iranians came largely from the steppe. Another unexpected surprise from this study is the presence of Andamanese hunter-gatherer ancestry. That's a population like the ancestral hunter-gatherers of South Asia. We currently do not have any proper South Asian hunter-gatherer sample to work with, so we use substitute populations. So yes, classical Iranian samples show noticeable levels of South Asian hunter-gatherer related ancestry. In my opinion, this ancestral component in Iranians is quite old. BMAC also had similar levels of this ancestry. One of the strongest findings from this study is the clear genetic connection between ancient Iranians and the BMAC population. Ancient samples from the Achaemenid and Sasanian periods both show strong affinity to the BMAC ancestry. What does this mean? It means that the people of Iran, from the Bronze Age BMAC settlements to the Iron Age kingdoms, were part of a continuous genetic stable population. Now let us check the ancestral components of ancient Iranic-speaking groups by percentage. Starting with the Achaemenid samples, the largest ancestral component for Iranians from the Achaemenid period is Iran Neolithic. There are about 4 samples from this period that were tested in this paper. Next we have the Parthian era samples. These samples also have significantly high Iranian Neolithic ancestry. But if we were to compare Parthian samples with the Achaemenid ones, we observe that the Anatolian Neolithic farmer ancestry increases and the Andamanese hunter-gatherer related ancestry decreases in the Parthian samples compared to the Achaemenid ones. The authors have not modeled these groups using Syntashta. However, they do seem to have steppe ancestry. But how do we know what was the source for their steppe ancestry? How do we test whether Syntashta is a likely source? Well, we would have to use admix tools for that. Let us look at rotating models for Parthians using QP admixture. This helps to check whether Syntashta ancestry really contributes to the Parthian samples, and here are the results. None of the Syntashta models passed, which means that it is pretty much confirmed that the Parthian samples do not have Syntashta ancestry. However, it does seem to show some steppe signals. The steppe ancestry in Parthians looks more like a blend of Caucasus hunter-gatherer and catacomb-related components because the population that fits the best is something like Armenian Tavshut MBA. The Parthian samples do not have Syntashta ancestry. However, it does show some steppe signals, so that cannot be ignored. Because the steppe signals come from Tavshut-like sample, we would have to check whether the Tavshut samples have any Syntashta type ancestry. When we do so, this is what we get. As expected, Syntashta did not work as a source population here either. It failed using the same set of outgroups. So we can conclude that Iranic-speaking Parthians had no steppe ancestry from Syntashta-related groups. So, in conclusion, the ancient Iranic-speaking people who call themselves Arya did not really have steppe ancestry from Syntashta. If you found this video interesting, give it a like and share it with others who are curious about a real Iranian history. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.